if you ever hurt a child, stop being available. It's not even a child, just a person in general. Half the battle is just showing up
Right.
and being consistent. I think that's a huge part in the makings of a great role model. And then once you get there, it's one thing to talk about your life experience, but be vulnerable in a way to say, you know what, everything about my life wasn't perfect. I can't sit up here and judge you from the mistakes you're making, because I've made some of those same mistakes in my life. I just may have been resilient enough to rebound from it. And you can be too. And I need to be vulnerable and open enough with anyone, or a child specifically, to share my life experiences.
Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? You tuned in to another episode of Strategic Moves. I'm your host, Ken Dow. This is a place where I bring art, culture, politics, and business all together. I've been doing it right here in this city for over 20 years. And along the way, I met some very interesting people. And this show gives me an opportunity to bring some of those people in and give us a chance to share some of our experience with you. So if this is your first time tuning into this station, I want to welcome you, and I'm asking you to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well, so that you can find out the next time another show is going. But in our audience today, I want to welcome two guests. They are here representing the 100 Black men of Greater Cleveland. So before we get started, Mr. Hubbard, I want to talk a little bit about yourself. Why don't you tell us where you come from? You're from Cleveland. You grew up here. Give us a little background story. Give us the little.
Cleveland native, born and raised. I actually grew up in Bedford Heights. I went to Bedford High School and graduated from Cleveland State. So I'm homegrown. And right now I reside in South Euclid with my family. But I'm born and raised here in Cleveland, and I've been around Northeast Ohio. I've lived in Cleveland. I've lived in South Euclid, and I lived in Bedford.
So you went to Cleveland State, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was your degree? What did you go study at
my degree is in nonprofit management. I graduated from Maxine Goodman College of Urban Affairs, and I spent my entire career working in the nonprofit sector. My title currently right now is Vice President of Development for a company called Newbridge, but I like to say that that's just a fancy title for saying I'm a professional fundraiser. I'm good at making and raising money.
Oh, that's what you do for Newbridge?
That's what I do.
So what does Newbridge do?
Newbridge does two things: workforce development and then art-infused social emotional learning. On the art-infused social emotional learning, we do something with CMSD called OST coordination, or out of school time coordination, where we work with 600 to 700 kids daily on social emotional learning through art. So we may do that through photography and some other mediums. And then you should switch over to the adult side. It's helping individuals identify career pathways and healthcare in the healthcare sector. So we have certification programs in medical assisting, phlebotomy, and sterile processing. I think the most impressive thing about the organization is those certifications are at no cost to any student. So you walk into the door, having exhausted your Pell Grant or having student loans and just want a career in the healthcare sector. That's what Newbridge does. We give them an opportunity, and then we place them in full-time, sustainable wage employment opportunities.
That's in the medical field?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And how long you been there?
Just a year and a half.
Yeah.
So
okay. I like what you're doing over there, I take it.
Yeah, I love raising money.
Oh, I had a guest on here, Cecil Lipcomb. You know him?
Yes, I know Cecil.
Oh, yeah.
Cecil from the United Black Fund.
Yeah, and that's what he does. He actually raised money, and we had a whole show on philanthropy. And we talked about raising money and all of the understanding of everything behind that. So I kind of get that. And so that's what you're doing. How's it doing, raising money for
It's going good. Last year was at 118% of goal. This year I'm over halfway there, and I'm pretty early on. So we're not on calendar year, we're on fiscal year. We don't end until June 30th. But right now I'm like 54%. So I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent. And we also have Mr. Burrows, Mr. Grady Burrows here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, be happy to. So I was born in Miami, Florida, but moved to Cleveland in 71, long time ago. So Cleveland's home. I was raised here in Cleveland Heights, went to Heights High School, and educated. My undergrad is from Ohio State University. I studied industrial systems engineering down there and received my MBA from Case Western. And I've been in the corporate IT field for about 20 years. Serving companies like National City Bank, before it was PNC, Goodyear, and Highland Software. Currently, I serve as the executive director of HIT and the CLE, which is a nonprofit-like organization. We specialize in working with middle school, high school, and college students, particularly communities of color, Black and brown kids, to help expose them to computer science and data science. So there's three primary parts of our program. We do after-school or out-of-school coding. We do a data science competition in the March timeframe of each year, and I work with college students, first and second year students, helping them find summer internships or jobs where traditional pathways may have been closed to them. So my program is all about opening doors and giving experiences to Black and Brown populations to expose them to pathways that they previously would not have been exposed to.
That elementary, or is that also in college you help?
So I work primarily with middle school and high school most of the time, but college during the spring semester of each year. So it really spans middle school, junior high, all the way through college.
Okay. And you went to Cleveland Heights High School. My kids graduated from Heights, and that's where I live. I live up in Cleveland Heights right now. You know, Cleveland is just a funny place, man. My daughter was telling me this when she went to college, is that when you go there, everybody's like, what neighborhood you grow in? And they treat neighborhoods like they're cities. And like Glenville community is like a city of its own. And it's like, man, I grew up in Cleveland. It's Cleveland, you know, and they like, no, you grew up in what neighborhood in Cleveland? It really matters to us. So we're here today to talk about it. We're going to talk a little bit about these programs and things because I find them to be quite interesting. But we also here to talk about the 100 Black men and the opportunities that they have to offer. So tell me a little bit, what's your role with the 100 Black men?
So I've been a member of the 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland for over 16 years, and currently I have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the Education Committee.
Okay.
And our organization is all about the empowerment, uplift, and really the nurturing of the Black community. As professional Black men, we are part of a national, really international organization of 100 Black men nationally. And our chapter is proud to put forth 4 primary committees or programs: education, health and wellness, mentoring, and economic empowerment.
Okay.
So we all basically work on one of those committees. There's other committees that come into the fray, but those 4 are local and national programs that we run.
Okay, and what you do there?
So I've been a part of 100 Black Men since 2016. I'm on the board of directors. The irony in this conversation is Grady is a big reason why I got to 100. I didn't know that the 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland existed until this man. So I've been on the board for a few years now, really engaged along the lines of development and fundraising. However, mentorship is something that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm one of the gala chairs. I was also the gala chair last year.
You know, I remember when the 100 got started here, Mike Nelson got started doing that some years and years and years ago. And he was really trying to recruit all of us to be a part of the 100 and join that organization. What is it for the folks out there who don't know what the 100 Black Men do? What is the mission of the 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland?
Well, as I kind of mentioned before, it does really span around economic empowerment, health and wellness, education, and mentoring. But at the essence, it's really about Black men giving of their time back into the community. Because we can all write checks, we can all donate, all show up for galas or events, which are fantastic, beautiful things. But the transformational work happens when you give of your time as a mentor, especially mentoring young Black boys. Our motto is what they see is what they will be. So it's really the magic that happens when we're walking a mile with a child, which is one of our programs in our mentoring here sector, where we walk with the young men in the metro parks and talk about different subjects that are important to them. Or we go into the schools like we do every Wednesday at Wade Park, where we tutor young 3rd and 4th grade Black boys. Or we work with the community on the disparities that exist within the African American community from a health perspective, and especially with diabetes and other big things that have plagued our communities for too long. When you take your time and work in these programs and give to people, that's where the real work happens. So it's an organization that we really stress and push hard on community service and volunteering your personal time, because that's where the real work is needed, and that's where we found the best bang for our buck.
So last year and a few years ago, they've been doing this thing where they've been declaring racism as a public health crisis. And in doing that, the council and the county and even the government, federal government, everybody passed these resolutions and all of these things that talks about that. So if we know that racism, and we're really to declare it as a public health crisis, it's safe to say that the African American male was probably one of the biggest abusers of that. And as a result of that, we look at what's going on now in our communities with African American youth and the lack of fathers in the household with mothers and that kind of thing. Tell me, what does the 100 Black Men do in its programming to try to help deal with that kind of situation? And I'm not trying to say I know you guys got the answer, but I just know that that's a really big piece, because I know mentoring in schools and getting out is one thing, and I know we need to get to those guys, but we got a group of guys that are walking around here now that really needs it more than anything. So is there any plans in the pipeline or anything? How you guys are addressing that issue?
So I want to address that, but I also want to say what 100 has meant to me and how it showed up in my life even prior to seeing that. So, representation matters. That's one of the major reasons I joined the 100. I think prior to being a member of 100 Black Men in Greater Cleveland, it was only a handful of places in my life where I can really name that I've seen Black leadership, a collective of Black leadership, specifically Black men in prominent roles. So, the first Black male leadership example I had in my life was my dad. I'm fortunate enough to have both of my parents, and that has been very much involved in my life throughout my entire life. So I think that's been a game changer. The only other places that I've really seen it in my life is through my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I've seen it in 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland. And that was probably one of the first times that I really, outside of my fraternity, got to see a group of men in suits who were all types of professionals and who were warm and ready to embrace me as I got there. I think that was an absolute game changer for me, because I felt, being in a major that I had in college, a lot of times I was the only one. Only man and only Black person in the room. And so a lot of times I was confused. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to navigate those spaces. And having these kind of mediums is a reason I've been able to navigate. I'm a first generation college graduate. So who do you go to really help you as you become a professional and try to navigate life? I would tell you, for Cleveland youth right now, 100 Black Men serves a major purpose for that. Having people that you can talk to, having people who can give you direction, not just on the strength of saying, hey, you need some help with your academics, but just really talking to you about life problems when you may not have the answer to address what's happening with you in your life. It's one of the very few organizations that I've been a part of where I can say, if I need a doctor, I can find one. If I need a lawyer, I can find one. If I need an IT person, I can find one. If I need a banker, I can find one. Any profession that you can imagine is encompassed in 100 Black Men. And I mentioned fraternity, but so many of us within an organization are part of different fraternities. So this spans across all fraternities. It spans across all ages. And the coolest thing about it is every one of these members are professional Black men. They're beacons and they're examples, and they're a way to help a young Black man navigate his future.
That's excellent. That's excellent. What about you?
So piggybacking on what Edwin just said, you talked about really how do we put in effect the need or the call that's coming from the community, especially coming out of the pandemic, or the post-crisis part of the pandemic, because we're still navigating that to a degree. We're opening back up. Kids are back in school. The need for mentoring is louder now than ever before. Every week, we have mostly young Black mothers calling our offices saying, "Would you please mentor my 10-year-old boy? He's a middle school, high school student. He's having some issues in school. He's at risk, and I really need some help." And we carefully document, we record, we call those mothers back, and we do the best to plug those young people into one of our programs, whether it's a group mentoring program or a specific event we may have, like in summer walk a mile with a child, or if it's a targeted event where we may have a seminar where we collaborate with other groups within the city to bring those young people out. Because many young men, especially in Cleveland, have the challenge of not just having, as Edwin said, all that positivity and Blackness and role models, people who care about them. My biggest cry is what I say is that it's about exposure. When the irony, and Edwin and I go way back, but we used to work from a board and scout perspective when Edwin was with the organization when we first met, but there were young men and they exist today who sometimes live in a city of Cleveland where 3 to 4 mile radius is their life, their world. Some young people haven't seen Lake Erie. Some have not been outside the state of Ohio. So when you have those paradigms where the young people don't know much more than their block, then they can't dream bigger dreams. They can't aspire to say there's a whole world out there of opportunity that they can impact and basically conquer if they don't have someone to show them the way. So our role is really to take those young people, first and foremost, to say, hey, I care about you as a person. Second, that I've had some hard times in my life as well. This is how I've overcome it and how we can do it in a positive, constructive manner. And most important, this is the world that you have to conquer, and it is laying out there waiting for you. But in order to navigate and give yourself the armor, the equipment, the tools to be successful, this is what you're going to have to do along the way. So we try to take all these things along with the brotherhood that Evan talked about, the resources that we have to our personal and our professional lives, and bring those things to the community so that we can give young people primarily, but also the bigger community, just some role models, some aspirations, some goals, some success stories.
Well, I think that it's safe to say, as we started the program off with the need of the African American male, and as it relates to racism, and how, as an African American male, through that process, how it limited us in a lot of circumstances. So in that, I know there's not one group that's going to be able to handle all of it. I think that there are buckets of African American male, because we all don't fit in a bucket. And the more I listen to you guys talk, I understand the bucket that you guys are fitting in, and that's good. And my son would have fit right in that bucket. You remind me of him and the stuff that he went through college wise and everything. So in that, I understand that, and there's a need for that. So with that being said, does the 100 Black Men work with other organizations, such as maybe the groups that are the incarcerated and some of those organizations?
Oh, definitely. We have a long history of collaboration. We work with Student of Promise, which is another organization, by release. In multiple
but that's schools. Again, that's in the schools. I want to get us outside. We got to get outside of the schools.
We work with job
and the
corps.
reason why I got to get outside of the schools is because a few reasons. One, like you said, they're just now coming back to school. So there's a large group of kids who didn't go to school. There's a large group of kids when they stopped going to school who, like you say, even though the schools have started going back to schools, we got to tell the students, you got to go back to school too now. So I understand that. So I think we got a huge number of brothers that are out here who stuck, and they're stuck in that, I call them the COVID babies. The COVID babies messed around and got the short end of the stick on everything. I even go as far as to say my daughter was playing softball, and she's doing very well, doing pretty good at it and everything, and was doing her thing. And during her senior year or her junior year, and that's when the COVID hit. And when that hit, it caused the training that she was doing and all of that to kind of stop. It affected whether she, I believe, mentally was working to try to continue to move on to another level with it. But all of that got cut short. That's just the recreation portion. Then the academic portion of that, from her working and trying to get through school itself was always an issue itself. And that year, almost, I would say they gave everybody a walk. It seemed like everybody just got passed on. It seemed like everybody from high school just got graduated. They went on, but they don't have the skills. And they missed everything. Those 2 years of school they missed. So those brothers are out there, and they don't know how about school. And when I say school, continuing education, getting a trade or any of that, 100 Black Men contribute in any of that kind of work.
Right. Well, I can speak, primarily we have been involved with different groups, especially reentry groups in our past. In the past, we have talked about taking our mentoring model, which is very strong and prolific, and beginning to marry with that and lay it over. How do we apply it to reentry programs when young brothers are coming out back into society and need mentoring? They need guidance. They need many of the same things we apply to the younger generation, but at a more age appropriate and sometimes adult level. And it's the need is so big between all the different demographics and populations. Honestly, we are outnumbered sometimes when it comes to the amount of.
No, I can understand. I can truly understand that.
We are looking to, as you said, to partner and to begin able to fill in the gaps. My philosophy, and I think ours of the chapter, is that nobody's coming to save us. Nobody's coming to save Black people.
Right.
There's not a program. There's not one individual. There's no elected official that's going to do it.
Exactly.
We as a collective community have to save our own. So where these gaps exist, whether it's reentry, whether it's economic empowerment, teenage pregnancy, violence, whatever it is, we have to become solutions for our own people and to begin to apply, really move those, because we have our best interests at heart. And at the end of the day, it's amazing how we look at different communities, whether they be immigrant populations or people who have had a lot of power in the past, and how they wield that power, and debated, well, why can't we emulate it? Why can't we reproduce it? What are the challenges? So, to that end, we have begun to sit down, and look at certain things. And as Edwin's mentioned, whether it's been Job Corps or the Urban League, there are other strategic partners that we have good relations with, and we continue to grow and see how can we pool resources, because many hands make lighter work. We can't all do it ourselves in a vacuum.
So what do you think about this young youth, Ed?
I think the same. So one of the things I didn't mention before, I'm a dad too. So I have two sons. One is 7 and one is 4. My sentiments are with you in terms of the COVID babies, right? I mean, my son literally started kindergarten during COVID. So schooling wasn't schooling for him. He didn't understand. He was on Zoom. He was coming to work with his dad. That's not a traditional setting for a child. I mean, not to mention the amount of trauma that children experience. Additionally, he was attending CMSD, and then we transferred from Cleveland Public Schools to South Euclid Lyndhurst City School. So it was a culture shock for him, coming from CMSD and then actually being in the classroom every single day with students and just trying to help him adjust. And so I've seen it from his age group. I've seen it with teenagers. I've seen it with young adults. I can even go back to my experiences in the 100 when we would mentor young men at Job Corps, young men who had struggled to get out of high school and were trying to figure out their directions in life. And I remember sitting down having conversations with young men in their 20s, and them telling me, like, man, I feel like I have a father figure and I'm talking to you. Look, listen, I'm 37 years old. I was younger than that then. And so the idea of a young man telling me, like, man, I identify with you like a father figure because he didn't grow with the father figure is just kind of mind blowing to me. And here I am thinking about, like, wow, sometimes I think we take for granted the people that we've had in our lives and what our responsibility is to serve in that gap for these young men and women who don't have these role models in their lives.
Well, and I think that that's a huge piece. I didn't grow up with a father, but again, that was back when the neighborhoods were the neighborhoods, you know what I mean? So I tell people all along that I can go through various stages of my life, either if I didn't have a father, if my boy's father was so tight that there was stages where, like you say, he felt like, you can lean on him even. And even those guys, and I would even go as far as the ones who knew that I didn't have a father, who knew I was living with my grandmother, took it among themselves to take extra time to teach me the stuff I needed to know as well as a man. Even if it was different from their son, they would even teach me something that they would know that I need to know, that they probably wasn't teaching their son at that time, but they were saying, you need to know this because you live at home with your granny, or you got to go home and take care of this, or that kind of thing. So I totally get what you're saying about that and understand. It's just that we just got to do more about that. And I guess it all goes back to what you're saying is it's not about writing the checks. It's not about just coming to the galas. It's about getting off your ass and doing something at the end of the day.
Roll up your sleeves.
Roll up your sleeves and doing it. So if you wanted to be a mentor in 100 Black men, what do you need to do to be a mentor?
So you can apply. We have open applications once a year. I would say that there are background checks that potential members have to go through. And then they also have someone who is a sponsor within the organization. And then the gala typically serves as the pendant ceremony.
Even though Evan kind of rolled out the application process, which is an annual process, we always are looking for volunteers.
I was going to get to that. I was
always looking for volunteers. So you don't have to be a member to work with the 100,
right.
And especially kind of kick the tires and see maybe if it's right for you. But even if you just like the volunteering, we can bring you in, put you to work on a number of different committees. But most importantly, as Evan said, we got to put you through the rules of rec because we are working with kids.
Right.
Background checks are important. But you can work on mentoring, you can work on education, You can work on economic empowerment. You can work on health and wellness and still make an impact in your community from volunteer.
Absolutely.
So dive into a little bit of that, but isn't all of that mentoring, or is something different? When we say health and wellness, it's still mentoring, right?
It's all mentoring at the end of the day. It's ironic because the mentoring chair and the education chair myself, we said, we might as well just blend our committees into one, because we're always, whether you're mentoring or you're educating, you're setting an example for that young person or that person you're engaging with as to how things can be, or what's the right way to attack something. And at the end of the day, however you touch somebody to improve and make their lives better, it's a mentoring component.
So let's talk about mentoring from this standpoint. We'll start with you and we'll work our way around. What makes a good mentor to you?
In my heart, I really believe that it's the capacity to listen and have empathy and understanding for the person you're working with. Be it to say everybody needs to go through training. Just because you always had a good relationship doesn't mean that you bypass that training piece. We put everybody through a little training module just to make sure they understand where certain boundaries exist and what you should and cannot do, and those things. But at the end of the day, the ability to listen and to really have that perspective of walking in their shoes and understanding where they're coming from, because you never know the full picture. Somebody may be broken. They may be extremely fragile from the perspective, whether it's abuse, neglect, whatever they may have gone through or not had, that you may take for granted has been important to you, or you have it in your current life. And as we engage young people, especially some of the young men we see in the schools or even afterwards, sometimes are huge gaps, whether it's COVID, where they've not been in school and had social interaction with the education piece, whether it's someone to say, I love you and I care about you, and to hear those words on a consistent basis, or someone just to say, hey, I'm not reading at grade level, or I can't read, and I'm 8, 9, 10 years old, or even 18 or 20 years old. And there's certain things that, I have a hard time struggling with, anger management issues, the list goes on and on. The first thing I say is you got to be able to meet them where they are.
Right.
Understand where they're coming from, meet them where they are, and say, okay, I'm going to work with you from where you are to take you forward. The next thing I think is really important is to be able to help them understand and see the bigger picture. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And if you don't know, let me expose you to some things, to some ideas, some professions. Many young boys want to be basketball, football players. That's their dreams, and that's a beautiful thing. If they got God-given talents, let me promote you and help you do that. But let me also expose you to a whole other world of business related to sports, or law related to sports, or marketing, and a whole bunch of things that you can still do related to athletics, but not necessarily, if you don't have the skills to play at a world-class level, still keep you in the game, so to speak. But I think the last thing to do is to have patience. And that's the patience to understand it's not going to be just because I sign my name on the dotted line and I show up once a week. At the end, you're going to have a beautiful picture with a bow written on it. You got to understand that it's about ups and downs, peaks and valleys.
I would say 3 additional things I would add to that. Available, because you need to be present and you need to be consistent. I think you need to be vulnerable and competent in the way that you can articulate your life story or the things that you've gone through, but then be able to convey the life lessons that you've learned from your experiences. I think that those are all game changers. Kids, they disregard you if you're not consistent, right? I mean, you can have the greatest introductory meeting ever, but if you're not going to be here, don't sign up to do it to begin with, because kids need consistency. If you ever want to hurt a child, stop being available. Not even a child, just a person in general. Half the battle is just showing up,
right,
and being consistent. I think that that's a huge part in the makings of a great role model. And then once you get there, it's one thing to talk about your life experience, but be vulnerable in a way to say, you know what, everything about my life wasn't perfect. I can't sit up here and judge you from the mistakes you're making, because I've made some of those same mistakes in my life. I just may have been resilient enough to rebound from it. And you can be too. And I need to be vulnerable and open enough with anyone, or a child specifically, to share my life experiences. And then again, once I can share those life experiences, because it's just not enough for me to tell you I've had hardships, I've struggled, I've had really bad times in my life. But what was the rebound? What did you learn from it? What specific life lessons can you give to that youth or that audience that's listening to you that they can take away from it, so they can not make some of the same mistakes that you've made, but also be encouraged that the things that they're doing right now is the right thing for them in order to move forward.
Is it a form of therapy?
I feel like mentorship can be therapeutic. I think it's therapeutic not only for the person listening, but for the person talking. I feel growth in myself whenever I mentor someone. I say this on a regular basis. I didn't get to where I am in my life without somebody helping me. So all of the resources that I have are free. I didn't amass resources to hoard them for myself. I amassed resources to be able to give them to other people. But the hustle is what you got to work for.
Mm-hmm.
You have to seek it out. You have to want to come and get the resources, but I have the resources available to you.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, how do you deal with the person you're mentoring and maybe the parent that might be not so willing to take advice?
The reality is that many times it is not the kid always, it's the parent, who's lukewarm or half baked and not fully engaged really in the whole process.
Half baked is a really good word.
And want what's convenient for them. A lot of times it's, I'm sorry, I got something else going on. Right. I got to work. It's something I got to do.
Right.
I had nobody pick them up.
So what I think is important and what I've seen in working with my own programs, although they be coding and after school IT and related or whatever, or even, my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma, and working with young groups and our kids, I think that what's important is that kids need to have multiple touch points. They need to have multiple interactions. So if that kid needs to have 2 or 3 other almost salvos or torpedoes that are hitting him from school or other points,
correct,
church, otherwise, and what you got to do is, it's almost the point, if 10 different things are hitting that family and that kid, maybe 1 or 2 get through, and 1 or 2 of those programs are successful and they hit where it resonates with the kid and hopefully with the parent too. It's value add, both parent and kid going to benefit, and ultimately it's a good thing. We need to invest sometimes because, quite honestly, what we see many times, if a parent is not engaged or supporting the kid, whether it's transportation, money, time, whatever, it's really hard, nearly impossible. Some kids have the fortitude and just the wherewithal to make it through.
Right.
And God bless them, because those are the ones who usually go to even higher heights because they have that self-motivation. But the reality is, a lot of our young people, especially our Black and brown kids in our communities, are dependent on that parent for those vital things. That's why they have a guardian in the home. And when the parent doesn't deliver, the kid falls through. How many times, and Edwin and I both know, we both have kids, as he said, whether it's taking them to practice, $5 for the field trip, whatever that ask is in order to deliver the program to make it happen, doesn't come through. So the child doesn't have that support. But what we need to do is to make sure, especially as the 100, if we can continue those relationships where we can have any and all types of access or exposure to those young people, so we can continue to be that positive voice in their ear, chipping away at thoughts of disbelief or lack, or just not being able to accomplish what we're trying to pour into them. Sometimes, though, there are programs where you need parental consent in order to execute. And, we just need to, as a community, again, wrap ourselves around those young people and those families to say, okay, maybe this is not the right time or place for this delivery, but I'm sure hope that these other 2 or 3 programs will be able to get through. But just as important, I'm going to close with this point. As we mentor to these young people who we traditionally try to target, we got to mentor to the adults.
I was just thinking that.
And I wanted to piggyback off of this as well.
Yes.
Just as much as you want to offer resources for youth, the conversation has to start to the parent. Do you have all the resources that you need as a parent to be successful in everything that you're doing? And working for a nonprofit, but then being on the board of another, I feel like I kind of see the whole picture. Because I love to ask parents, hey, what do you do? There are resources that you may be in need of. Are there workforce opportunities that you may be looking for? Because the 100 is just not about your child. We have other resources that we can connect you to. I think that's the benefit of being an organization comprised of professionals, that we all bring a different flavor. We all bring different resources to what it is that we do as a collective. So we can say, I can mentor your son. I understand that you're saying that you may not be available because your job is demanding and you're waiting, or you're looking for a job and you need some help. Hey, I got a program for you. I can connect you to this. So now we can mentor your child, and I can remove another barrier for you so that you can go ahead and
do what you need to do.
I think the greatest obstacle we face as an organization in terms of mentoring our youth is the trauma. So many parents they're not receptive sometimes because they're processing their own traumas.
Correct.
And so what they're doing is they're covering their own children
Mhm.
and saying, you know what, I want you to be in this program because this just reminds me of something from my own life experience that has nothing to do with the program that you're a part of. But I'm just telling you no because I wasn't allowed to do it.
I want to talk about the gala that you guys are got going on and what that's all about. So when is this gala?
December 10th, and I'm happy to report our gala is sold out. We are
Really?
at maximum capacity. The room is going to be filled, and it's going to be a phenomenal night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everybody, if you look in our comments below, we'll leave a link where you could have got a ticket to go, but now they said that it's all full. I'm going to show you what you're going to be missing. Are y'all going to do that event live or something?
We are going to have a live stream associated with it. So
y'all know some of the people getting honored?
Jasmine Long is one of them.
Yeah, I know Jasmine. That's the girl with the doula.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And who else we got? Oh, Michael Nelson.
Michael Nelson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Judge Nelson.
It's a whole slate of individuals who are being honored at the event.
Okay. Right.
And one of the things, Ken, real quick, we're going to have some of our mentees there that evening as well.
Mhm.
The young people that we actually mentor. So
Okay.
again, part of exposing them to what it means to, as Edwin says, honor Black excellence in our city, and to see a room full of professionals who have gone on to do great things. Again, keep saying and putting them in front of opportunities to say this can be aspirations for you if you so desire and put the work in.
Excellent. I was going to blast out about the dinner, but they don't need our help. But we do want you guys to check out the program, and I want to give you a few minutes. I'm going to let you go first.
Hey, so if you're interested in Newbridge, I will tell you to start by visiting www.newbridgecleveland.org. Please consider going on and learning more about our organization. I also have a picture of a campaign that I started just this month, 23 for 23. But as I mentioned earlier about Newbridge, all of our students attend at no cost. This is a campaign to purchase a set of scrubs. It's $23. You can visit this QR code that I have below and donate $23 to help a student get through our program, and you will be helping a future healthcare hero. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention, if you were interested in getting in contact with me or learning more about what I do as a professional fundraiser and the things that I do in the community. Again, my name is Edwin Hubbard Jr. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
And we will have his information in the description or in our description page. So information about how you can donate to Newbridge Finance, his fundraiser, as well as links to all of his information. Okay, Mr. Grady.
Okay, thanks, Ken. So if you know anyone, any young person in middle school, junior high, or high school age who would like to learn how to code for free, we have a program called HIT and CLE. Specifically, our coding community classroom. It runs 5 days a week. That's Monday through Thursday from 4 to 5:30 and Saturday mornings 10:30 to 12. You can either do it in person or via Zoom, so you don't even have to leave the comfort of your home. But if you have a young person, you can sign up at www.hitinthecle. That's HIT in the CLE. There's a tab at the top that talks about the coding community classroom, and we would love to have you. Coding is a talent that really is going to affect everybody, no matter what profession you have. Knowing a little bit of code goes a long way. So we start and meet you where you are. We take you at beginning, zero. You don't need any experience whatsoever, and we can take you to be proficient in HTML or Python and learn some skills that can take you a long way in life.
All right. Hey, I want to thank you guys again for coming on the show. And please look into the list of comments and you'll get all their information and check them out. Thanks again. See you next time. Beautiful, fellas.